Filmmaker Paul Schrader was the guest on Later with Bob Costas on March 18th, 1991. Filling in for Bob that night was Tom Snyder, who did an adequate job of interviewing. I mean, we all watch Tomorrow, and he knows how to interview, but he's a no Costas. Anyhow, Schrader, really cool. Paul's always been on my list of favorite movies. You got Taxi Driver, his debut. He talks about writing that at length, like his lifestyle, living in the cars and living at night, and boom, writing the screenplay in like 2 weeks or something. And but impacting Clevelanders' lives was him coming to town and filming Light of Day at the Euclid Tavern. And shoot, to see your a young adult haunt documented in a major motion picture, albeit a hard one to get. I have a laser disc of it. I know it never came out on DVD, and be interesting to see if it's streaming. But anyhow, Schrader's great, talking about his career, and you know, there's a picture of the filming of Light of Day. So Clevelanders, take a look at the photo montage in the middle of the episode, because it might have you in it playing video games. Enjoy.
Hi, thanks for staying up later. I'm Tom Snyder for Bob Costas. I'll be with you all this week, and joining me tonight is the motion picture director and writer, movie director and writer, Paul Schrader. His films are known to all of you. He's been involved as a writer and director in the films that include Taxi Driver, American Gigolo, The Last Temptation of Christ, Raging Bull, and his newest picture, due on March the 29th, is called The Comfort of Strangers, and we will talk about that. Paul, I've read about you for the last few days. It's a pleasure to meet the real person, not somebody on the printed page. And everybody who's read about you knows that you didn't go to movies as a kid, that your parents were very strict. And the first picture that you ever saw was The Nutty Professor, a Jerry Lewis film.
Absent-minded professor.
Absent, same thing in my view. Yes. None of the pictures that you made are anything at all like the first picture that you saw. What changed in your perception of movies?
Well, you know, in many ways, I was extremely fortunate. And whenever I've never thought of myself as being in competition with my peers, because most of my peers are interested in making versions of the movies they saw and loved as children, whether the musicals or westerns or whatever. And since I never saw any movies as a child, I don't have that memory bank. And I basically came to films as an adult, as a college student. And the first films I saw were the foreign films.
And was that by choice, or was it because they were the kinds of movies that you would bump into in the early days of your theater going?
No. I was going to religious college. I was going to a seminary, which disapproved of movies. And so in order to fight the structure, you know, you had to prove that movies were a viable art form. Well, you didn't do that by screwball comedies. Right. You know, you dragged out The Seventh Seal and Viridiana and so forth. And eventually we did change the school's policy and eventually the whole church's policy regarding that. But as a result, the first 5 years of my movie-going life was all logged in at very high seriousness. And then I ran into through a whole set of circumstances. I sort of came under the wing of Pauline Kael, who got me into UCLA Film School.
Now, I've read time and again about your chance meeting with Pauline Kael. Where was that, and how chancy was it?
I came to New York for a summer to see movies. And I was staying at John J. Hall in Columbia, taking some courses. And I was in the West End late one night, and her book had come out. I lost it at the movies, and I loved this book, and I got into a discussion with someone at the bar, you know, the way you do, or way you used to do, and we started arguing about the book and saying how much we liked it, and he said, well, let's go see her. And it turned out that he was Paul Warshaw, and his father was Robert Warshaw, who was a great critic of the 40s, who Pauline very much admired. And we went over to her house, we had dinner, and we talked. I had only seen a dozen movies, but I had a lot of opinions. And we talked and talked and talked. I ended up sleeping on the sofa. The next morning, she said to me, she said, you know, you don't want to be a minister, you want to be a film critic. And if there's anything...
She had never met your mother and father, had she? No.
Yeah. She said, if there's anything I can do for you. And so then I went back to school and got my undergraduate degree, and I said, you know, and I wrote her, I said, you know, you're right. And so she helped me get into UCLA Film School. I used Pauline's connection to get the weekly job at the LA Free Press, which was from, I think, about 68 and 69. Mm-hmm. And I, at that time, was delivering Chicken Delight for $20 a week. And the LA Free Press was paying $20 a week to review movies. And I thought, wow.
And do you write the folks in Grand Rapids and say, you know, tell the ministerial school I won't be back, I'm clearing 40 a week in Southern California?
And then eventually I had the presence of mind, the Free Press being a rather penurious institution.
Cheap.
Yes. And I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you, because now I had a little sense of career. I said, I will give you your $20 a week back if you give me a big block that says movies, Paul Schrader, you know, and a billing, you know. And they said, oh, that seems fair enough. And so I still run into people today who said, oh, I remember your reviews. Of course, they don't remember the reviews. They just remember that block. I was trying to be a film critic, and that's not a very lucrative position. I was sinking deeper and deeper in debt, and I had gotten fired by the Free Press for penning Easy Rider. So, and I'd written a book, and I was editing a magazine, and...
excuse the interruption. Why didn't you like Easy Rider?
I thought it was ersatz.
Meaning?
I thought it...
Phony?
Yeah. I thought it was not the real thing.
And were you the only critic who didn't like it?
I, as a critic for that magazine, never got much pressure. So I go to a screening room, and I'm sitting there, and there is Peter Fonda and Jack Nicholson and Tommy Smothers. And I'm sitting there. I said, you know, something's up here. And I watched the movie, and I didn't like it. And I'm supposed to go on a KPFK talk show with Peter Fonda the next day. And I said, no, I really can't do it. I didn't like the film. And then I go over the newspaper, and I realized that everyone on the paper has seen the movie. The guys with ponytails downstairs who are laying out the paper.
And they're all nuts for it, aren't they?
Yeah, everyone's nuts for it. So I go to the editor. I say, you know, I don't like this movie. Here's my suggestion. Run my review, and then run another review, side by side, that loves the movie. I think that's a good way out of this. And he said, no, this is the Free Press, you know. And sure enough, I got fired. Well, the staff had a meeting protesting, and the editor said, I authorize it, I stand by him, so they fired the editor. So we both got fired.
When do you get to Taxi Driver? So many people know Paul Schrader by that film. Yeah. I think it's fair to say it was the one that made you an overnight sensation, and I'll put that in quotes. But where does De Niro come into your life?
Well, you know, it's a film like that is a serendipity. You know, you three people, in this case, Scorcese, De Niro, myself, you know, at a certain point in their careers, fall into sync, make a film, and it works, and it lives, and never dies, and a week doesn't go by and I don't hear some reference to it.
And is that okay with you that I mentioned Taxi Driver, that people who meet you mention...
I said to Barty, I said, you know, no matter how long we live, and no matter what we do, you know, at the end, you know, the obituary is going to read writer, director, whatever, of Taxi Driver, you know.
Did you sense that you and Scorsese and Robert De Niro were beginning a relationship that would last some time?
Yeah, I don't know if that was clear, but what was clear, and you know, was that we were on to something. It was very strange. I had someone, I wasn't on the set that much, I came and went, but I had someone on the set come to me and say, I always remember that I was a part of the making of this movie. Now, you know, that doesn't happen. I mean, when you make a movie, for the most part, you really have no notion of if it's going to be successful or important or anything. And there was just that, you know, that tingle, that sense that you were doing something that actually was out there and good. And the film was expected to fail, you know, just because its protagonist was a psychopath. And so we had a dinner the night before it opened, and we all said, look, we made a terrific movie. Tomorrow it's going to go in the toilet, but whatever else happens, let's never forget this moment and this awareness that we made a terrific movie, and let's never renege on that fact.
In reading about you, as all people who moved to Los Angeles and Hollywood, you had marital difficulties. And interviewers have written of you imbibing more than you probably would have liked to, which a lot of people do, and of visiting pornographic districts, the red light districts in Los Angeles.
I lost my job, I lost my marriage, and I took to driving around, and sort of living in my car and living wherever I could, and living at night. And when you live at night, particularly in Los Angeles, the only thing that's open all night is pornography. So you start doing that. And I started getting a pain in my stomach. And I went to the hospital. And I was talking to the people in emergency, and I realized I hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks, you know. That's not a long time, maybe 2 weeks. But I realized I just hadn't been communicating. And I had an ulcer, so why the pain in the stomach. And while I was in the hospital, I said, that's what I am. I'm an effing taxi driver. I'm this guy that's floating around in this metal coffin who thinks he's surrounded by people, but is absolutely alone. And as soon as that hit me, I knew, and then I started writing. And I wrote that thing. I went to a friend's apartment, and they weren't there. And I got the typewriter, and I wrote 2 drafts in 10 days. When I got tired from writing, I lay on the sofa. When I woke up from the sofa, I went back to the typewriter. You know, it's wonderful when that happens. It's like an animal jumps out of the top of your head. And you, as you grow older, you grow more and more envious of those days. That when the writing won't stop, when your fingers can't stop typing.
So then all those people who expressed amazement that you finished up Taxi Driver in 10, 15 days, after hearing what you just said, shouldn't be so surprised at all, should they? It just, bang.
Yeah. I mean, the good ones have a tendency to come very fast. And because you know what people are going to say and do before they even say and do it. You know, you just know. You know, when someone says to me, I've been working on this script 8 months, you know, the red light goes off, you know, there's something wrong, you know. If someone says, this is no good, I wrote it in 3 weeks, you say, you know, you've probably got something there. Because, you know, when you are possessed by something, it doesn't let you go.
Your hands feel colder when you leave your home. Don't your eyes look older when you make your own? Understand
We're back with filmmaker Paul Schrader. His newest picture is called The Comfort of Strangers. It opens in March, and there's a book out now which is called Schrader on Schrader and Other Writings, which goes through all the films that Paul has written and directed over the years. For people who will go through this, in here you talk about the pictures that you've made, Very candidly, you talk about the stars that were in these pictures. You talk about the circumstances under which they were made. Raging Bull. The story everybody talks about when they talk about Raging Bull is the weight gain by De Niro. How much weight he put on and was he able to take off. Was that a big thing when you were making that picture?
Well, I mean, I don't think putting on weight is acting. But, Bob's performance in that film is absolutely brilliant. But, it was, that gimmick that got him the Oscar, just like Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. It's it's always the gimmick,
But Paul Schrader has gimmicks. I watched your pictures over the years. It's hard to find a movie that Paul Schrader is associated with as a director in which the camera locks in and stays still. It's always moving. It's always coming in. We always see telephone poles moving in exact sequence across the screen. So you have gimmicks too, don't you? Directors have those.
I think it's
Hitchcock, walk through the picture, and you've got the moving camera, and you hate to turn the lights on in your movies.
Yeah, you have your preferences, Some people like hard light, some people like soft light, and I don't know. There are different models for one's career. You can work the same territory over and over, such as Hitchcock or Woody Allen or John Ford. Or you can be like Stanley Kubrick and try to reinvent yourself each time out of the box. And that model appeals to me a little more. I am a person that tends to get bored very quickly. And Penny Marshall, who's an old friend of mine, says, the only problem with you is, she says, that you always go that one step too far. And I find myself often in writing and directing standing there, literally, with my foot out saying, should I do it? And then it hits. And you do go that one step too far. And that's what makes it interesting. That's what keeps you alive. That's what makes you feel vibrant. But the moment that foot hits, you know that there's a lot of people who are going to be upset.
Now, tell me about Paul Schrader, director, and his ego. You got a lot of people running around your set saying, oh, quiet, we don't want Paul Schrader to get upset. You know that goes on.
Well, the delightful difference between writing and directing is that writing is very lonely, but it's also extremely powerful. Whatever the weather is, the actors are always beautiful, and they're always so talented, and they're witty, and the timing is right, and the wind and the sound is right.
No jet planes ever fly over, nothing.
But you do get lonely, and then directing is just the opposite. It's very communal. There's 100 people saying good morning, but nothing is right. The actress walks out, and she's got herpes on her lip. And you say, wait a second, that wasn't in the script. What are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? We're going to shoot her from behind? And so it's a whole process of dealing with reality.
And then you, as writer, go to the director, put your arm back here and say, listen.
But they're very different pleasures, and it's a great luxury to go back and forth from one. I wrote 2 pictures last year, and I hope to direct 2 films this year, and that to me seems to be the ideal situation.
We're back with filmmaker Paul Schrader, writer, director. The newest picture as director is called The Comfort of Strangers, a picture that I would describe as dark.
Oh, I love that word. That's the all-purpose curse word of Hollywood.
No, it's not.
If you really want to lay somebody on the floor, you just say dark, and then that's it. End of discussion.
If I really wanted to lay on the floor, dark wouldn't be the word. You gotta believe me. But when I say dark, in reading the film notes, lighting was a major factor in this picture for you. The film is dark because it is foreboding.
It's not dark, it's malevolent.
It's evil. There are touches of evil in this picture,
Absolutely.
Which, by the way, is a big theme with Paul Schrader.
Yeah. And no, it's about the other side of the mirror, when everything is flipped the other way, when good looks bad and pain looks pleasurable. It's a novel by Ian McEwan, who has a very bent sensibility. He's a British novelist, and Harold Pinter, who also has worked, the rough side of the street for many years. So it's strong material. I love the script. I love the story. Ian McEwan, who wrote the original novel, he sent me a note after he saw the script. I saw the film, and he liked it a lot. He said, if the reaction to the film is anything like the reaction to the book, it'll be very mixed, because people are very uncomfortable with the unruly unconscious. And the unconscious is unruly. And it does things and feels things that you don't like to know about.
Again, my thanks to Paul Schrader for the ride tonight and for the movies along the way and for his forthcoming picture, which is called The Comfort of Strangers. For Bob Costas, I'm Tom Snyder. There's nothing wrong with your set. Sleep tight, America.